Hi, it's Jan here. Today we start the five life experiences, the peak experiences that I had during my journey. And the first one is about trusting God. The reason I came to that is for most people maybe it's obvious, but for me it was a difference to my normal life because I had always learned that I was supposed to take care of myself and all the people around me, and that's it. My mom told me that, and at least I understood it like that. That was because the only one you could count on in the world is yourself. So that's why this for me was a major quantum leap actually, to get into a point where I would trust God. And let me tell you the story about how that actually came about. When I went for my trip and my journey and my healing and so on in Bali, it was back in 2008 October, and I started by actually going for a cleanup retreat in Ubud in Bali, and that consisted of cleanup in so many different ways with something ugly to drink that was green and basically also cleaning up colons, but also getting spiritual healing and so on. And after that, I think it was 8 days, I actually went on to the north of Bali, got in called there somehow, and actually first lived in a couple of hotels and then moved into a villa where I lived for myself for a period. The key to that was that I was looking for something, but I didn't know what it was actually. I was still very new in the spiritual journey. I went to palm readers, I visited temples and so on. And one of the activities I did every day was to walk on the beach. It could be a half-hour walk, a 1 hour walk, 2 hour walks. And because I knew that exercise is important also. And I had started a raw food intake, so I wanted to clean up everything I could. But on one of those walks, probably 1.5 months after I arrived in Bali, I see on the water side a temple, half in the water and half on the beach, and it was deteriorated from many years of water coming up and down in between flood and ebb, and something dragged me. Something was calling me there. I can't explain that. It was just a feeling. And on the beach was another temple, kind of in parallel with the other temple, and at that time at least I knew that I had to ask for permission to enter any temple. So I went into that temple outside and just asked for permission to visit that, and then also to visit the temple on the beach. And after doing that, I was going back to the temple that was half in water and half in the beach, and going in there and actually getting myself ready to pray. And suddenly a beam of light or electric or something like that just came down through me, even before I prayed. And it was like laming me in a way, so I landed on my knees and I couldn't move. Extremely painful, but at the same time, well, so different that I didn't even know what to relate it to. The only thing I could do at the time was actually just to raise my hands and ask God for stopping it, and that I was certainly not ready to die. And it stopped. So it took me then a couple of minutes to recover a little, and I went outside the temple, sat outside on the beach and reflected on what is actually going on here. And the only thing I can say is that that was the time when I, in my reflection or contemplation, realized that this is the time where your powers, your own powers, is not enough, and that there is powers around us that is so much stronger that we have to start to trust those. And that's probably where my trust to God, trust to the path, trust to the journey I was on started to emerge. Initially I thought it was just about cleaning up, but this was kind of more than cleaning up. It was basically cleaning up my whole body, everything in my body, in my mind and so on. It's like thinking in a completely new way. So what then happened after that was that 2 weeks or so, I started getting messages when I was in my villa and that I needed to get away from there. I didn't know why, I didn't know how, but I had 2 motorbike accidents in a row in a couple of days basically. And the last one was serious enough that I kind of understood that it was meant to be like that. You have to get away. And so I started making arrangements for that, talked to my palm reader, and can you help me find out how to get to the Buddhist temple? Actually, the Buddhist temple was 1 kilometer up the street of where I was living in the villa. But I didn't know how to approach getting into a Buddhist temple. Of course, you can visit it as a tourist, but I knew kind of I needed to stay there for some time to get used to prayer and meditation and so on from a more religious or spiritual path, a spiritual way. So she arranged with a guy called Budi that I met in the Buddhist temple, and I told him about my story and about how it happened the last many years, and that I was now on a spiritual path. I wanted to find out how to make myself ready to whatever I needed to do, because certainly I was called from God and Jesus, and then I ended up in Bali without really not knowing a lot about what to do about that. And he arranged, actually, he had been there for 16 years as a supporter, but was also working as a webmaster and so on. Besides that, and he invited me home, and he said, you are approved to go into the Buddhist temple. When do you want to come? And I said, well, as fast as possible. I only had my backpack basically, so it was easy for me to move into different places. And so I did, and I arrived there in the morning, and I was received by the supervisor, and he guided me into a room in an area where normal people come for tourist for tourist stayovers when they go to retreat there. And there was no one there, only me, and there was like 30 rooms and a toilet that was not a toilet and so on. So one can imagine that me, used to the 5-star hotels and all that stuff, you know, what was I doing there? And during that period I thought about that a lot. Is this really what I'm looking for? But anyway, a lot of things happened there, but the most important thing was that a couple of days after, the supervisor came up to me and he said, you know, you can stay in Dalai Lama's room. Excuse me. And Dalai Lama had opened the temple, I think, 15 years before. The temple was built by one of the higher monks there. I have to admit I forgot his name. And Dalai Lama's room was actually where he was residing at the time when he was there. And that was basically where my journey really started, because a few days later I attended a 10-day Vipassana, which is about complete cleanup of your mind, of your body, of your soul, through meditation, through silent meditation for 10 days. And I will tell you about that at another time. But the key about this is actually that this first experience on the beach was not the last one. And I was told from someone visiting me right after the Vipassana that I could come and join them for a temple ride in Denpasar area, which is the main city of Bali. And I did, and I met a high priest there, Hindu high priest,